I've always been the afterthought, the shadow, the son who existed only to absorb the family's frustrations and make my sister look brighter. At 41 years old, I had long accepted this role, not with peace, but with a quiet, simmering resentment that sat in my stomach like cold gravel. This year, however, the dread of the approaching Thanksgiving holiday felt different. It was heavier, sharper. I knew something was about to break. It had to. My parents, David, 70, and Carol, 68, were the architects of this dynamic. They were masters of the subtle slight, the casual dismissal, the polite cruelty that leaves no visible bruises but shatters you from the inside. They weren't monsters in the classical sense. They were just people who had chosen a favorite so completely that their other child, me, Arthur, had become a ghost in their home. A ghost they only saw when they needed someone to blame. The center of their universe, the golden child, was my sister, Emily. At 38, Emily was a portrait of inherited privilege. She had floated through life on the cloud of our parents' adoration and, more recently, a massive financial cushion. She was charming, beautiful, and utterly, terrifyingly irresponsible. Emily had never truly worked a day in her life. Yet, she lived in a sprawling luxury condo, drove a car I couldn't afford the insurance on, and spoke of million-dollar deals as if she were ordering coffee. She was, in every measurable way, a perfect creation of unearned confidence. The source of this confidence was a $15 million inheritance. It hadn't come from our parents. They were comfortable, but not wealthy on that scale. It came from our deceased Aunt Hilda, our mother's sister. Aunt Hilda had been the black sheep, a shrewd, sharp woman who saw the world exactly as it was. She saw our family dynamic with painful clarity. She saw Emily's reckless spending and our parents' blind enabling. And, crucially, she had seen me. This $15 million was the central object of my family's obsession. It was their security, their status, and the validation of their life's work, which was, in essence, the coddling of Emily. They spoke of it in hushed, reverent tones. It was Emily's future, Emily's nest egg. To them, the money was already hers, a fact as solid as the ground beneath their feet. They were wrong. The breaking point, the final snap in the cord that had been stretched for 4 decades, came on a Tuesday, 9 days before Thanksgiving. I was bringing my new girlfriend, Laura, to the dinner. Laura was important to me. She was kind, intelligent, and saw me for who I was, not the caricature my family had created. Introducing her to them was a big step, one I was foolishly optimistic about. I called my mother, Carol, to confirm I was bringing a +1. The line clicked, and her voice, already distracted, came through. Carol speaking. "Hi, Mom, it's Arthur," I said, my voice steady. "I'm just calling to confirm for Thanksgiving. I'll be bringing my girlfriend, Laura. I'm excited for you to meet her." The silence that followed was not a pause. It was a judgment. I could hear her exhale, a sound of profound inconvenience. "No, Arthur," she said. Her voice was flat, casual, as if discussing the weather. "You are not coming to Thanksgiving this year." I froze. What do you mean?" "I just need to add 1 plate." "We just can't, Arthur," she continued, the dismissiveness cutting deeper than a shout. "You just create trouble, and we want a peaceful holiday for Emily and her family. We have enough stress." Stress. The code word for Emily needs something. Trouble? What trouble did I create? I demanded, my throat tightening. "Don't be difficult. Your sister is closing on a new property, and it's a very sensitive time. We just can't have your negativity. It's final. We'll see you sometime after the new year, perhaps. Goodbye." The line went dead. I stood in my quiet apartment, the receiver still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. It wasn't just a rejection. It was an uninvitation, a banishment. It was the final public declaration, delivered with the casual indifference one might use to cancel a newspaper subscription. I didn't belong. I had never belonged. A coldness spread through my chest, extinguishing the last embers of hope I'd harbored for a normal relationship with them. It was replaced by a sudden, clarifying rage. This wasn't sadness. It was a sharp, metallic tang of pure fury. The humiliation was total. They hadn't just insulted me, they had insulted Laura. They had dismissed my entire life as negativity. My mind, usually cluttered with anxieties and the dull ache of resentment, became diamond sharp. This was it. The need for payback, for a reckoning, was overwhelming, but I wasn't gonna scream. I wasn't gonna beg. I was gonna dismantle them. I needed strategic, complete payback. Not just to hurt them, but to reclaim the dignity they had spent a lifetime stripping from me. I was going to make them understand, in terms they could not possibly misinterpret, exactly who they had thrown away, and I knew exactly how to do it. I walked over to my desk and unlocked the bottom drawer. Inside, beneath a stack of old tax returns, was a thick, leather-bound legal portfolio. I pulled it out and laid it on the desk. The embossed title on the cover read, "The Hilda K. Vance Irrevocable Trust." This was the core twist. This was my secret. Aunt Hilda, in her infinite wisdom, understood my sister's spoiled, grasping nature. She knew that handing $15 million to Emily directly would be like handing a matchbook to a pyromaniac in a fireworks factory. The money would be gone in a decade, and our parents would just watch it burn, telling her how bright the flames were. So, she had created a legal instrument of beautiful, brutal precision, a spendthrift trust. This type of trust is designed to protect a beneficiary from their own worst instincts. The beneficiary, Emily, could not touch the principal. She could not use it as collateral. She could not assign it to anyone. She received distributions, but she had zero control over the source. The control rested entirely with the trustee. And Aunt Hilda, in her final brilliant move, had named me sole irrevocable trustee. For the past 5 years, since Hilda's passing, I had held this power. Absolute total control over every payment, every investment, and every single distribution of the $15 million. My family knew nothing about it. They, including Emily, believed the money was managed by a faceless bank, a simple quarterly deposit appearing in her account like clockwork. I had allowed this illusion to persist. I approved the payments for her condo, her car, her endless shopping sprees. I did it quietly, efficiently, from the shadows. I was still the afterthought, just in a different, more potent way. I had been biding my time, waiting. I just never knew what I was waiting for, until now. My mother's words echoed in my head. A peaceful holiday for Emily. We have enough stress, she's closing on a new property. The property, of course. My mind raced, connecting the dots with the speed of a supercomputer. I logged into the trust's secure online portal. There it was, a pending wire transfer request, scheduled for the day before Thanksgiving. A single, massive distribution of $500,000 marked Deposit Lakeview Real Estate Holdings. This was it. This was their stress. Emily, in her infinite irresponsibility, was likely buying some monstrosity of a lake house, and this $500,000 deposit was the critical piece. Without it, the deal would collapse. She would lose the house. And more importantly, she would likely forfeit a massive non-refundable portion of that deposit. This was a single point of failure in their perfect golden child world. And I held the switch. My rage had now cooled, solidifying into a block of pure, cold purpose. My decision was immediate. My target was clear. I picked up my phone. I didn't call my mother back. I didn't call my father. I dialed the private number for Mr. Jensen, the senior manager at the trust bank. He was the only other person who knew the true structure of the trust. Mr. Jensen, Arthur Vance speaking. Mr. Vance. His voice was professional, crisp. A pleasure. What can I do for you today? Mr. Jensen, I said, my voice perfectly level. I am reviewing the pending distributions. You will see a large transfer scheduled for next week, $500,000 for a real estate purchase for the beneficiary, Miss Emily Vance. I see it right here, sir. All in order, it seems. It is no longer in order, I said. I am placing an immediate, permanent hold on that transfer. I am also placing a hold on all non-essential distributions until further notice. There was a brief, surprised pause on the other end. A permanent hold, Mr. Vance? May I cite a reason for the file? I leaned back in my chair, the first genuine, cold smile touching my lips in years. Cite unforeseen financial instability of the beneficiary. As trustee, I am no longer confident that this or any large-scale purchase is in her best interest. I am initiating a full review of the trust distribution strategy, effective immediately. Please ensure this block is absolute. No one is to override it. No one but me. Understood, Mr. Vance, Jensen replied, the professional mask back in place. He knew the law. My authority was absolute. The hold is in place as of this moment. The funds will not be released. Thank you, Mr. Jensen. That will be all. I hung up the phone. The first strike was launched. The missile was in the air, silent and unseen. Their perfect Thanksgiving, the peaceful holiday I was banned from, was now ticking. It was set to explode in precisely 2 days. The next 48 hours were the calmest I have felt in my entire life. I took Laura to dinner. I didn't mention the phone call with my mother. I didn't mention the trust. I was, for the first time, entirely present. I laughed. I enjoyed my food. I enjoyed her company. The quiet hum of the bomb counting down in the background was my own private soundtrack. The detonation occurred, as expected, on Thursday afternoon. My phone rang and the caller ID displayed Emily. I let it ring 3 times before answering, adopting a tone of mild, bored curiosity. Hello? Arthur! Her voice was a shriek, a discordant symphony of panic and entitlement. What did you do? What did you do to my account? I have no idea what you're talking about, Emily, I said calmly, sipping my coffee. Don't lie to me. The $500,000, the deposit for the lake house, it's gone. The bank said the transfer was rejected. They said it's been placed on hold. That's my money, Arthur. I'm going to lose the house. I'm going to lose the deposit. Did you mess with my bank account? It was breathtaking, really. The sheer, unadulterated arrogance. She wasn't asking for help. She was demanding service. She was still operating under the delusion that I was the family errand boy. She didn't even know what to ask or who to ask. She just knew something was broken, and in her world, I was the one who broke things. I did not mess with your account, Emily, I said, the words cold and precise. I called the trust bank. There was a confused silence. The trust? What does that have to do with you? You don't have access to that. On the contrary, Emily, I said, savoring the moment. I am the trustee. I have placed a hold on all large transfers for review. I am just doing my job, legally. I could almost hear the gears grinding in her head. The concepts of trustee and author failing to connect. Trustee? What? What does that mean? What are you talking about? Put mom on the phone. I'm not with mom, Emily. It means I control the money. All of it. You're lying, she screamed. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. I'm calling Dad. You are finished. The line clicked dead. I took another sip of coffee. Phase 2 was complete. The panic was now spreading from the source. I gave it approximately 90 seconds. My phone rang again. This time, the caller ID read David and Carol. I answered on the first ring. I didn't even get to say hello. Arthur, what in God's name do you think you're doing? My father's voice was a roar, the kind he used to use when I tracked mud into the house as a child. I'm stopping the financially reckless transfer, Dad, I said, my voice a flat wall of calm. Stop playing these stupid games, Arthur, he bellowed. That is Emily's future. That is her house. You've been on the phone with the bank. They said you put a hold on it. How did you even do that? Whatever you did, undo it. Now. My mother's voice broke in, sharp and hysterical. We mean it, Arthur. Fix this problem now. You are ruining everything. Do not ruin our Thanksgiving over your pettiness. Emily is beside herself. My pettiness, the sheer, breathtaking blindness of it all. They still thought I was a child throwing a tantrum. They were still operating under the delusion that I was the one who needed them. They still thought being cut out of the family forever was a threat. It was time for the full, devastating revelation. It was time to burn their world to the ground. I waited until my mother's tirade wound down, and then I spoke into the silence. My voice was slow, deliberate, and utterly devoid of the emotion they expected. I was not angry. I was not pleading. I was a judge delivering a final, irrevocable sentence. There will be no more threats, Dad, I said. I am not a child you can ground. And that threat about never speaking to me again, about being cut out, don't you understand? You already did that. Mom did that 2 days ago when she banned me from Thanksgiving. A sudden, shocked silence hit the line. I had used their own weapon against them. You seem to be confused about the situation. I continued. So let me be perfectly clear. The money is not Emily's to command. It was never Emily's money. Aunt Hilda was smart. She knew who you all were. What are you talking about, Arthur? My father's voice was smaller now, the bluster replaced by a creeping, dawning horror. Aunt Hilda left the $15 million in a protected spendthrift trust. I explained, drawing out each word. I am the sole, legally appointed, irrevocable trustee. I let that hang in the air. I let them process the words. Sole, irrevocable, trustee. What this means, Mom, I said, directing it at her, is that I sign off on every penny, every transfer, every investment. Not Emily, not you, me. After your banishment, I decided it was time to review the entire financial structure of the trust. And I've concluded that the beneficiary is far too unstable for a $500,000 distribution. So, the $500,000 is not going anywhere. The hold is permanent. The silence on the other end was no longer just a pause. It was a vacuum. I heard a sharp intake of breath, possibly my mother. I heard a shuffling sound, like my father had staggered or sat down heavily. The sound of their entire foundation, their certainty of the inheritance, their financial security, their power over me, it was all shattering in real time. They finally understood. The person they had banned, the afterthought, the family scapegoat, wasn't just holding a grudge. He was holding the pin to their financial grenade. He was their only hope. The shift was instantaneous. It was the most grotesque, sickeningly rapid pivot I have ever witnessed. Arthur? My mother's voice was completely different. It was high, sweet, and dripping with a desperate, false warmth. It was the voice she used with her wealthy friends. Arthur, sweetie, listen to your mother. Of course, you are coming to Thanksgiving. Oh, goodness, that was just a misunderstanding. I could hear her trying to laugh it off. A brittle, panic sound. You and Laura are welcome. We can't wait to meet her. We were just so stressed about Emily and this house deal. You know how she gets. Please, sweetie, just release the funds for your sister now. For me, we'll see you on Thursday at 4. It was disgusting. The years of cruelty, the casual banishment, all washed away in a second because the money was threatened. My father chimed in, his voice thick with a new, fawning humility. Please, son, I'm so sorry. We're sorry. You're our boy. We love you. Just tell me what you need to release the money. We can fix this. Anything, Arthur. Anything. That was the word I was waiting for. But I was done. The time for begging, for apologies, for fixing things was long past. All that was left was execution. It's too late for Thanksgiving, Mom, I said, my voice like ice. The door was closed. You closed it. I will not be coming. Laura will not be coming. And you are right about one thing. Dad, I will tell you what I need. Anything, Arthur, anything, Carol shrieked. The money's not moving, I stated. The $500,000 is frozen, and it will remain frozen until I have a full, signed apology from both of you. An apology? Of course. We just said we're sorry, David said, scrambling. Not a verbal one, I cut him off. A written one. A formal statement, legally notarized. I want you to admit, in writing, to the years of emotional abuse. I want you to admit to the financial favoritism. I want you to admit that you banned me from Thanksgiving without cause. I want you to detail it, and I want you to send it to my lawyer. Legally notarized? My father's voice was a whisper of pure disbelief. He was a proud man. This was, to him, the ultimate humiliation. Those are the terms, I said. You have until the end of the day tomorrow. If I do not have that notarized document, I will not only keep the $500,000 frozen, I will proceed with a full legal review to permanently cap all of Emily's distributions to the bare minimum required by the trust charter. I will cut her off. I heard a small, strangled sob from my mother. Think about that while you wait for your daughter's deal to collapse, I said. Oh, and Emily? I knew she was there, listening on speakerphone. Yes, she whispered, her voice tiny. You lost the house, I said simply. The deadline for the deposit is tomorrow at noon. The funds will not be there. You will lose the property. You will also, I assume, forfeit your deposit. That's a very expensive consequence for your behavior. For all of your behavior. I stressed the cost. I wanted them to see their cruelty not just in emotional terms, but in a cold, hard number. $500,000. The cost of banning me from Thanksgiving? You will draft that document I ordered. You will have it notarized. You will send it. Or Emily's financial world ends. This is not a negotiation. This is a demand. Goodbye. I hung up the phone. I turned off the ringer. I sat back in my chair. The profound, echoing silence of my apartment, a balm on my soul. The power, the absolute control, it was intoxicating. But it wasn't the money. It was the justice. It was the sound of a 40-year-old power dynamic shattering like glass. The family's surrender was total and pathetic. They must have scrambled, calling lawyers, screaming at each other, realizing every path led back to me. They had no choice. They were trapped by their own greed and their mistreatment of me. The very inheritance they had worshipped as their salvation had become my weapon. The next afternoon, Friday, a secure PDF landed in my email inbox, CC to my attorney. It was from my father. To whom it may concern, it began formally, coldly. I opened it. It was 3 pages long. 3 pages of an itemized, humiliating, legally notarized confession. They admitted to a long-term pattern of emotional favoritism toward Emily. They admitted to using Arthur Vance as a scapegoat for family stress. They admitted to unjustly and cruelly banning me from the Thanksgiving holiday. They admitted everything. Every transgression, every slight, every bit of financial and emotional neglect. All laid out in stark black and white, stamped and signed by a public notary. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever read. It was a monument to their defeat. I saved the document, I backed it up to the cloud, I printed a hard copy and put it in the leather-bound portfolio right on top of the trust agreement. I did not reply to the email. I let them twist. I let them sit in their self-made hell of uncertainty all day Saturday, all day Sunday, all day Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thanksgiving Day arrived. It was a cold, crisp morning. I made coffee for Laura. We cooked together, not a massive, stressful turkey, but a beautiful roast chicken. We opened a bottle of good wine. The apartment was filled with the smell of rosemary and thyme and with easy, quiet laughter. My phone remained off. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right around the time they would be sitting down at their table, staring at my empty chair, staring at Emily's tear-streaked, furious face, I picked up my phone. I stepped onto my balcony and dialed Mr. Jensen at the bank. I had prearranged the call. Mr. Jensen, Arthur Vance. Mr. Vance, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, Mr. Jensen. I have reviewed the beneficiary situation. The $500,000 transfer remains blocked. The real estate deal is dead, as intended. Understood, sir. However, I continued, I have seen the invoices related to the collapse deal. There is a non-refundable penalty of $50,000 for forfeiting the deposit. I am authorizing a one-time, immediate distribution for that exact amount. $50,000. No more, no less. This was the masterstroke. I wouldn't let Emily face legal ruin. That would be messy and could, in a complex way, eventually impact the trust. But I would not save her from the consequences. I would pay the penalty. I would make her feel the sting of the $450,000 she didn't get. I would make her understand that this was not a gift, but a fine. A clean, cold, perfect piece of control. Very good, Mr. Vance, Jensen said. The transfer will be made. Thank you. I hung up. I went back inside. Laura and I sat down to our peaceful, perfect dinner. There was no screaming, no veiled insults, no stress. Just 2 people enjoying a meal and the quiet satisfaction of a world set right. My phone did not ring. Not that night. Not the next day. They had received the $50,000. They had received my message. I had established a new, permanent hierarchy. The change was irrevocable. I was no longer the scapegoat. I was the gatekeeper, the essential, cold, and utterly neutral administrator of their financial comfort. Every penny they wanted, every luxury Emily desired, every bit of security my parents craved, now came through me. It came through my approval. And my approval was now contingent on one thing: their absolute, unconditional respect. The fallout was permanent. Emily now knows that her entire lifestyle, her very future, depends on my mood. She sends me polite, brief emails requesting her quarterly allowance. The requests are always on time. They are always polite. My parents live under the permanent shadow of my financial control. Our relationship is, for all intents and purposes, over. But they are trapped. They cannot afford to cut me off, and I have no desire to see them. They must live every day knowing that the son they threw away now holds their entire world in the palm of his hand. They have to live, knowing that their dignity is the price of their daughter's next mortgage payment. They wanted a peaceful holiday without me. I gave them one, an expensive, chaotic, and emotionally ruined holiday that cost them $500,000, their pride, and their power. My banishment was the fuse. Their greed was the powder. And my control was a spark that blew their privileged world to pieces. The revenge was sweet, devastating, and entirely, wonderfully justified.